All right. As you can see, restore the Snyderverse depth. We can talk a little bit about depth. Oh man. Shine Comics. Shout out to Shine Comics. I miss when comic book movies had actual character development and emotional arcs. Anyone else agree? When Superman was talking to Lois Lane, and he talks about my world doesn't exist anymore, he was in a sort of depression. It was interesting seeing how his world is rebuilt. Well, he understands that his world actually is present. He didn't even realize talking to his world, which is Lois Lane. He didn't realize that she cared so much about him and that she was his world. You know what I'm saying? It was when he had that reflection with his father on the mountaintop that, and the altar, as we should say, the Abrahamic sort of story. You saw that he came to the realization through his father that even though bad things happened, that his world was still there. There was somebody who believed in him, who loved him, which was Lois Lane. She was his world. And it's beautiful seeing the arc of Superman captured in these phrases. My world doesn't exist anymore. This is him discouraged, losing hope. And then, this is my world. You are my world. Taking ownership and responsibility, going from a broad perspective, which is this is my world. I'm on Earth, and Earth is my world. This is what I know. These are the people I know. They love me. They care about me. And then he gets very personal and very specific, and he says, "You are my world." And again, this kind of movie making that we are lacking today. We have these comic book movies they say is made for kids, which is shallow. There's no depth. I was having a conversation with a guy on Twitter concerning Man of Steel. And the guy said to me, so you think Man of Steel is deep, or do you think it's a movie trying to be deep? And I looked at him and I said, because, these people always associate Man of Steel, the story writing of Man of Steel, with Zack Snyder. But Zack Snyder did not write Man of Steel. He may have interpreted it as a director, but he didn't write Man of Steel. The writers of Man of Steel were Christopher Nolan and David Goyer. Are you telling me that Christopher Nolan and David Goyer don't do deep films that you can reflect on? This is Batman v Superman, written by Chris Terrio. Are you saying that Chris Terrio, a Academy Award winning writer, doesn't write deep films? See, this is what I'm trying to understand. Why are you even asking me this question? Why are we having this? I thought our conversation would be on something else. I'll tell you what. I've noticed that when people start to debate with you, they come from, or they try to come from, an intellectual approach. They're trying to show you stupid. They're trying to show you that you believe a lie. They're trying to show you that what you have is not good. And because they try to come from an intellectual perspective, they shut down the emotional perspective of themselves. We have what's called emotional intelligence. We also have what we call intellectual intelligence. And now we have in the world artificial intelligence. We have something that can mimic us. Now the question is, when talking to somebody, whether you're debating with them or not, how many of these intelligences are you willing to have yourself vulnerable to make the argument? Most people think an argument has to be intellectual solely, meaning there is no morals or ethics. There is no, if I put myself in this person's situation, what would happen? But part of debating and arguing is also shared human experiences through emotional means. The people who are emotionally strong, it's because they've come in tune with their emotional vulnerabilities. When you look, you can't interpret something if you don't understand the emotional state of the people there. If you're just an intellectual person, a cold-hearted intellectual person, you can't relate. And relatability has to do with commonality, and commonality has to do with emotional commonality. When we connect as human beings, we connect on an emotional level. We don't connect with each other on an intellectual level solely. There are emotions that come with that intellect. So I don't know if I'm being too complex with you guys right now, but I understand what I'm saying. My point is, the guy tried to argue with me solely on an intellectual level. And I showed him through the intellectual level, through logic and reasoning, that makes no sense what he's saying. Like, you shouldn't even be asking me this question. But if you had watched the film, if you have watched these movies, which you would connect with emotionally if you've had similar experiences, you would know that these films, and that's what films are for, it's not about intellectual acknowledgement, even though there's a lot of intellect in it, it's wrapped in emotion. It's wrapped in emotion. And that's why some of the most intelligent people, when they're arguing with somebody because they feel it's all a versus, a debate is not necessarily a discussion. I understand that, but still, you have to have a certain degree of emotional intelligence to be able to connect to something, to be able to understand a person's argument so that you can counter it. So here he is asking a question that clearly shows his disconnect to the movie. If you are not emotionally connected to this movie, then you're going to ask a stupid question like that. Is this movie pretentious? Is it trying to be serious? It ain't trying to be serious. It is serious. It's not trying to be serious. Your view of comic book movies is, it's for kids and they're fickle little things. That's not what this movie is. This movie is showing you, as the Dark Knight, the reality of if this was real, if this was possible, and how someone would react naturally to it, emotionally to it. So this very highly charged emotional moment where Superman is talking to Lois Lane after the capital city bombing, if you can't connect to that emotionally, it doesn't matter what intellectual arguments you make. You have to be able to connect with that, or at least empathize with it emotionally. And this is the problem with the people who are viewing. Highly intelligent people, but saying this movie is pretentious because you're not looking at it. You're not putting yourself in that person's shoes. You're not empathizing. Notice I didn't say sympathizing. I said empathizing. So you cannot connect emotionally to it, or you cannot understand why people are connected emotionally to it because you haven't put yourself in that position of vulnerability. You cannot judge a person as you cannot judge a script or story if you haven't put yourself into the shoes of that person to see what they are confronting. And that's the layer of depth to the Snyderverse. You look at Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman has layers upon layers of depth. They're mostly emotional depth, not so much intellectual depth, even though BVS has both. But the thing that makes it so real and why women broke down and cried when they were seeing the Amazons there is because it was an expression of femininity and womanhood that they didn't realize they were missing, and that was a part of who they were. They discovered themselves while watching a movie. And that's a potent thing about audiovisual mediums and movies. Movies can make you recognize, see things that you never saw before, that were always there, that you couldn't articulate, but the movie is able to do it emotionally and otherwise. That leaves you leaving that cinema different to how you came in. It's transformative. And I would say that Wonder Woman, to some degree, sparked the Me Too movement. Zack Snyder's Man of Steel changed the game for comic book movies once and forever. They've been copying Man of Steel time and time again. You will hear a whole bunch of directors say, oh, Man of Steel was one of the greatest films we have ever seen. But the critics didn't get it at the time because they were emotionally disconnected from what that movie was, even though that movie is an exceedingly emotional movie. Man of Steel is one of the most emotional movies in comic book movies. The only one I think that's more emotional, and it is also melancholic, is Spider-Man. Because Superman's sort of like a tragedy in a way. It begins with a tragedy, the end of Krypton, and it ends in a tragedy where Superman has to kill his fellow Kryptonian General Zod. It's a tragedy. It's an extremely dramatic film. And even the delicate way how the Kents raised Clark, how delicately they dealt with the situation and lovingly they dealt with him. Even when they were reprimanding him or scolding him, they did it in such a loving way. It showed you how they cultivated those attributes of Clark that made him who he was. Whether you think that certain decisions that they made was controversial or not is irrelevant. Their parenting was quite effective, and we can understand why Clark is the way he is. So anyway, I say all of this to say that the guy who asked me that question, which I thought we were past this. I thought we are adults here. I thought that you understood that this movie was deep. And it ain't trying to be deep. It's deep. Left us with a sort of disconnect. Because if a guy's questioning that, so I had to answer him logically. I said, well, look, listen, this movie was made it was written by David Goyer and Christopher Nolan. Are you saying that David Goyer and Christopher Nolan are not deep individuals? Are you saying they're pretentious? Did you think that The Dark Knight and Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises were pretentious movies? Are you saying that they were pretending to have depth? Excuse me. Because one of the allegations they try to dump on Snyder fans, and I'm not saying that some fans really overdo it, right? They say that, they use superlatives, they really glaze movies, okay? So there are fans out there like that. But they're glazing, especially I hate the fans who say, oh, that shot looks so beautiful, but they never are able to articulate or explain the depth of what is being seen. So that's why I say they glaze Snyder's, excuse me, they glaze Snyder's movies, right? I'm not into the glazing shit, right? I'm a practical, functional person. I'm telling you as it is. It's for you to find the virtue, not just find the virtue, but understand what the movie was saying to bring out the virtue. Because a lot of times we got people who don't even understand what the fuck they watched, but they're glazing the thing, And when you have to get an explanation from them, well, why do you say it's beautiful? Or when you start to pick at them, they don't have an answer. They just say it's beautiful. I'm a creative. I do music. And one of the things I do is when I'm giving my messaging, because I'm very specific about what I'm singing about. I sing about specific things. And as a creative, sometimes people say, beautiful song. I say, well, what makes it beautiful to you? And they will say, well, it's just beautiful. And I'm like, it's just beautiful. So you didn't get nothing out of it? It's just beautiful? It's just beautiful singing to you? There was no message in the song, right? I didn't say nothing. I'm just beautiful, right? Kind of like people looking at a woman and complimenting her on her beauty, and that's all they know. all they could see of her is her beauty. They can't see nothing else. Her personality, who she is, her academic accomplishments, etc. They stay superficial. I'm not on that shit. Okay, I'm not on that shit. I've never been that kind of person. And I don't like empty compliments. Right? Shine Comics, man. Shout out to Shine Comics for seeing what he's seeing. Look at this one. 20 years in Gotham, Alfred. We've seen what promises will work. I'll make you a promise. It's almost like he went from being skeptical of people to being opening and welcoming. And this is, of course, post Superman, him discovering who Superman really is from what he perceives them to be. And that's an incredible arc summarizing these little quotes here, you know. And this is the thing I like about Shine Comics. And shout out to Shine Comics. Shine Comics is not just a Snyder fan. He is a comic book connoisseur. He'll show you which comic, where, what volume, etc. That's why he's called Shine Comics. He also himself does comics. Okay. And you always, you know, the people who actually do the things, they always have greater insight into stuff. You know what I'm saying? All right. Character actions and motivations matter in comic book movies. Superman saves everyone. He doesn't pick and choose when to act. It is clear who reads the source material. Cavill Superman saves Lex Luthor even though he tried to kill his mom. David Superman lets Lex Luthor be attacked by a Kryptonian dog that could easily have killed him and does nothing to stop him. And we've seen this Superman, Cornstarch Superman, do nothing to stop the killing of the kaiju, nothing to stop the killing of the guy who saved him, nothing to stop the killing of you know, the Asian lady on top of the building and all the other people. He did nothing, and he stood there and he watched it happen, right? Supergirl called him a bitch to his face, and he did nothing. When Crypto was, you know, wreaking havoc and doing, he did nothing. That's the Superman we're dealing with. That's the epitome of male masculinity. A guy who does nothing when he should do something. Shine Comics says, dialogue and characterization matters in Superman media. I love Superman when he's written well. I don't care what they've been saying about me. The woman I love could have been blown up or shot. Super shit? Lewis, you know that word specifically irritates me. One guy is saying, nah, man, I know what my purpose is. I grew up, you know, with people both showing me love and also not liking me, right? So, you know, I go with what matters. You matter to me. So, you know, I put in the background all those other comments and about other things. And you know the truth and I know the truth, right? This Superman's offended by the slightest thing people say about him, right? Immaturity versus maturity. Immature writing versus mature writing, right? Superman is a symbol of hope, and that's the most important part of the character. Why didn't the Blue Lantern choose him? Barry Allen was chosen instead. Now, this is from the comics he's talking about, which is good. See if I can find something else here somewhere. Objectively, the best iterations of Superman, they actually understand what makes Superman work. So you have the New 52 Superman there. You have All-Star Superman, who's going to the grave of Jonathan Kent. You also have Superman, the animated series, and you have Henry Cavill Superman. And Shine Comics believes that these Supermen actually embody Superman. And the thing about Man of Steel, which I always like, you know, they say that's not a Superman movie. Well, for most of the movie, he wasn't Superman, so I get it. This movie is about the origin of Superman, right? Man of Steel is about the origin of Superman. It is the only movie that shows the complete origin of Superman. It gives its own narrative on the origin of Superman. That's what makes Man of Steel so great. David Goyer said, you know what? Nobody's ever written about how Superman came to be, just like how nobody's written about how Batman came to be. Right? We have a little synopsis, but we never run into details. This is where Christopher Nolan had that leeway. This is where Zack Snyder had his leeway, right? And David Goyer. So I think that that's what, and Zack Snyder was given a complete story because he was showing you how Superman came to be. Then he showed you how Superman mattered to the world. And then he showed you how Superman mattered to people who wanted to help the world and protect the world and had special abilities, right? So we saw Superman in the context of the Justice League, and we see why he leads the Justice League. So that's the kind of framework in which Zack Snyder was giving you this complete story. He was going to give you the ultimate story of Superman, because you were going to get now why Superman, ends up under the influence of the anti-life equation. And then we would have gotten why Superman is Superman and why Superman leads not just the world, but, the galaxy, intergalactic kind of shit against Darkseid. So that kind of shit, that kind of story, layer upon layer upon layer, is fucking deep for a comic book movie. And yet, even though it has that much juice and depth in it, it also makes the DC fans, like a wet dream for them, because it's like, damn, this is what I wanted all my life to see. And now I'm seeing it. And not only am I seeing it, I'm seeing it in a form that, yes, this is what DC is. It's just summing up what DC is. That's what made Zack Snyder. And that's why we still keep on saying, and we'll continue to keep on saying, restore the Snyderverse, because we know what's coming. And that's what makes us so anxious. And that's what makes the whole fucking world so anxious. And when James Gunn, when this stupid studio keeps on derailing us or, sending us down pathways we never asked for, sorry about the yelling, and it really ticks us off. And you can see it in the box office. As much as they try to pad the box office domestically, internationally, the world's like, man, you open up this opportunity with Zack Snyder's Justice League. You showed us what DC could be. You showed us where we're heading at, and then you just fucking block that from us? Oh, fuck no. We're not taking that shit. Fuck you. And we want that. Right? So that's what happened. And that's what's happening right now. People are like, what? They stopped this? Even people who never were DC fans, when they see Zack Snyder's Justice League, they're like, what? You mean to tell me they're not going to finish this shit? Are you out of your fucking mind? That's how they feel. And I personally feel the same way, because I know there's so much more to see and know. And the industry shills and the fucking Gunn fans and Casey Bloys with all his bots, they're trying to convince the majority of people on the fucking planet, nah, what you're saying is a minority if you want this. And no, we're not going to give you that, because that would derail what we're doing. What are we derailing? Tell me, what are we derailing? How are we derailing it? We're supposedly this minority, right? We're supposedly the toxic fans, right? We're supposedly the evil people for asking for something that we really thirst for. And the whole fucking world, and they showed you by the fucking box office for Superman, we don't want that shit. We told you that. We told you since 2021, we want the fucking Snyderverse. We told you. We told you what we're looking forward to. And you arrogantly, like a fucking piece of shit, you arrogantly said no. And then you started to villainize us for asking for what we want. You fucking arrogant piece of shit. That's how we feel about you. You think Toxic Warner Brothers just came out of thin air? You think Suck It Warner Brothers on what's his name? Help me out here. Chris Chris Colbert's TV show, which is now no longer. You think him saying "suck it, Warner Brothers"? You think Chris Colbert would say "suck it, Warner Brothers"? You think he knows what the sentiment, the popular sentiment about this fucking company is? We have DC fans who will give every DC movie a break. Leroy Kong, he went and watched The Flash. He went and watched all kinds of things. He watched Aquaman 2. Leroy Kong said he wasn't going to watch the Superman movie. He made up his mind. I'm not watching that shit. Not after what James Gunn did to Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, Jason Momoa. Not what he did to the set of movies that were going to end the Snyderverse. James Gunn has been a destructive force to DC since he's arrived. He has contributed nothing to DC so far. And you don't expect DC fans, not even Snyder fans, DC fans not to be mad with James Gunn? Let me tell you what James Gunn did to DC fans. Forget Snyder fans. DC fans wanted to see Henry Cavill back. They didn't care about Zack Snyder directing him. They just wanted to see Henry back on the screen. You know what James Gunn did? He threw Henry under the bus. Then he blames Warner Brothers for not informing Henry that he wasn't coming back. DC fans started defending James Gunn, saying James Gunn gonna bring a Superman that we like. James Gunn came out and asked, "You want Superman with trunks?" And it was like, "Yeah." James Gunn could save the DC. This DC fans. You know what James Gunn did? You know what James Gunn did? He canceled Superman and Lois. He fucking canceled Superman and Lois. Where Snyder fans and DC fans at least could have something in common, and they say, you know, Superman and Lois is good series. He canceled it last year. That's not all. Why DC fans are mad at him. DC fans had the animated fucking films. Crisis on Infinite Earths and all of that. You know what James Gunn did? He shut that shit down too. He shut it down too. And what's playing on HBO Max? Kite Man. Harley Quinn. All to the fucking jokes. Everything is fucking jokes. He's making fun of DC. Just very recently. DC fans said Superman doesn't kill. DC fans. Real DC fans. His fans. Superman doesn't kill. James Gunn came in and echoed the same thing. Superman doesn't kill. He never kills. Then Superman kills in this movie. Multiple times. Then James Gunn turns around and says, well, you know, Superman kills when necessary. So the very fans that were defending James Gunn, he throws them under the bus. Because James Gunn doesn't give a fuck about DC fans. He don't care about you. He only cares about James Gunn. James Gunn cares about James Gunn. That's it. He's a narcissist. So, you stupid fans who are still shilling for James Gunn, he's throwing you under the bus time and time and time again. Here you are supporting a guy who could only produce flops for DC. You're making excuses for him. Meanwhile, he's mocking Superman. He's mocking Superman. He's just like Joss Whedon. Joss Whedon did the same thing. Joss Whedon had the Flash humping Wonder Woman. He had Batman looking like a clown. And he had Superman's face messed up. That was deliberate. These people are mocking DC. They don't like DC. They are mocking it. And they don't like you. And y'all are such fucking idiots. Your IQ is so fucking low. You're actually eating up that slop. They're slapping you in the face and you're saying, give me more, give me more. You fucking idiots. When I saw Jody's Corner, he's still shilling for James Gunn, but he's saying, I hate this Superman. When Jody's Corner saying that, and Jody is as much a Zack Snyder hater as they come, even though he liked Zack Snyder's Justice League for some reason. When Jody's Corner was saying, look how James Gunn is flipping the bird on DC fans. You know something very wrong. So when internationally people said, I'm not watching that shit, give me the Snyderverse. I listened to all the commentaries in mainstream media, and they acknowledge that James Gunn didn't get Superman and all these other things. They may even go there. As time elapses, they're going to say more severe things against James Gunn. But here's the thing. They keep on saying that the fandom is divided as if there's equal parts James Gunn fans or DC fans that don't like Snyder stuff and fans who like Snyder. This ain't no equal nothing. Okay? I'm going to be real with y'all. The majority of fans that supported DC and the DC audience are fucking Snyder fans. Period. And it shows in box office time and time and time and time and time again that they're absent. The people who like Zack Snyder's movies, the people who like the Snyderverse, that would be Man of Steel, BVS, supported Studio Squad, later on realized that, supported like Wonder Woman, and supported Aquaman, are the majority of the DC audience. And guess who they are? They're Snyder fans. That's just the reality we live in. They may not be big Snyder fans, but they're Snyder fans. And they probably like Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. They probably liked Joker and showed up for that. Okay? And some of them liked the Batman and showed up for that. Okay? This is the reality of the situation. And yes, the Batman has Batman fans as well. And they have Batman fans, both Marvel and DC. But ultimately, in the end, you can't do shit without Snyder fans. You can't make a movie profitable without them. That's just the reality of the situation. And the studio, if you haven't faced that reality yet, well, flop away until your studio is bought over by somebody else, because you will be bought over. You're not going to survive. And we'll watch your demise, and then we'll go to the next person, and we'll ask them the same question. This question is not going away. When are you going to restore the Snyderverse? It's not going away. It's not going away. And we're 4 years in. Let's see how long they last. Let's see how long they last. Because you're now outlasting us. We're fans. We could go for 20, 30 more years. We don't care. Constantine, we've been asking for a Constantine sequel for 20 years now. And we're not going to let up on that. The people who asked for the Schumacher cut that started about 3 years ago, they're not going to stop. The Alita Battle Angel sequel people, they're not going to stop. So you can either listen to them or you can be destroyed, because we will destroy you. Not by design. We don't want to destroy you, but we're not going to move on from what we asked for, because we know the value in what we're asking for. That's the difference between us and all these so-called movements that come up and fizzle away. We're not fizzling away. We're just getting stronger, because you keep on giving us evidence that you don't have a better plan to move forward. That's why Restore the Snyderverse is still around. You can't top what Zack Snyder did in the DCEU. You can't. You brought out this director and that director. You brought out this star actor and that star actor, and they couldn't get it done. And now you're slowly beginning to realize that the people who you initially put in place there to get this franchise working, they're invaluable. Now you can make the mistake that Warner Brothers did with Richard Donner and never hire him to continue Superman. Or you could do yourself a favor and rehire Zack Snyder to finish his trilogy. And while you're at it, because we like this kind of stuff, let Ben Affleck finish his Batman movie. Let David Ayer release his Ayer cut and finish it off. Let Patty Jenkins come back, do Wonder Woman. Fix up the end of Wonder Woman so it fits more into what Zack Snyder was doing. And on top of that, let her continue doing Wonder Woman. I don't know if she'll be doing with Gal Gadot. It depends on Gal Gadot. If Gal Gadot is still going to continue in her Zionist ways, then fuck Gal Gadot. Period. I couldn't care less what happens with her. You can't be committing genocide. You can't be murdering people, and you get to do a star spot in Hollywood. I'm sorry. I'm just not for that. I don't care how good an actor you are. And until Gal Gadot comes to the realization that Palestinians are people too, and that they're being butchered they're being murdered by her government, I really don't give a fuck what she does. And I don't care to see her as Wonder Woman. I'm sorry. I'll watch the previous Wonder Woman movie. I'll watch her in Zack Snyder Justice League and so on. But I'm not supporting any other venture where she earns income on the backs of dead bodies of children. Fuck out of here. The Hope Corps ruined Superman. Yeah, hope and light. That's what Jeff Johns was saying, hope and brightness. Superman represents hope and brightness. Yeah, he does. In a dark fucking world. That's why we look to him. Because when things are going really bad and it's very dark and dismal, he's like that glimmer of hope, that glimmer of light. That doesn't mean that hope has to be, smiles and sunbeams coming out my ass. And a feel good something. Hope doesn't always feel good. Somebody hoping that they could overcome cancer. There's no sunbeams running out their ass. They suffering. But there's that putting your mind to getting healed, getting well. Hope is not an easy thing. Batman and Wolverine by Jim Lee. See, we can have a lot of Marvel crossovers. Trust me. Absolute Batman and the Punisher. You know what I'm saying? God, the parallels between Dr. Manhattan and Superman are so cool. Superman is literally the thematic foil to Manhattan. Snyder is such a genius. And Snyder obviously wants to involve Watchmen. Oh, shit. Snyder wants to involve Watchmen, Reverse Flash in his legacy story. Oh my God. I don't need it. I'm done talking for now. All I'm gonna say is the kinds of shit that Snyder had in he's a madman. He had, coming up. There's no way I don't want to see that. I can give a fuck what these other shills and these clowns out here be saying. That's something that almost any real DC fan out here will want to see. All right, and that's Shine Comics. Tom MC JL says, Zack Snyder is now set to direct The Last Photograph, Brawler, UFC, and LAPD back-to-back with filming underway for the first this August. The Last Photograph is an intimate passion project. The LAPD is a character-driven thriller, and Brawler is an underdog action event. So Zack Snyder has plenty of work. Plus, you remember, he still has Rebel Moon, some animation for that he's supposed to put out, as well as, Rebel Moon. He has Army of the Dead. I think there's an animated something that's supposed to come out soon. You'll find out more about that later. Just in a broader picture, a major security event occurred in Rafah, Israel-controlled southern Gaza Strip. Around 15 Palestinian fighters entered an area under firm Israeli control using a tunnel network and opened fire on an IDF unit from close range. High Israeli casualties reported. Evacuations are still ongoing. Yep, Vietnam all over again. Superman Constantine says, shout out to Constantine, Superman failed to pass Man of Steel and was put on digital early. Superman's already flopping on digital. Zack Snyder is set to direct 3 movies back to back. Zack Snyder is united with Hans Zimmer and the writer of 300. August has been Christmas for Snyder fans. So many W's. Now, I want to say Superman's crossed 600 million. I think it crossed 600 million either yesterday or the day before. So it was either Wednesday or Tuesday. It crossed 600 million. So it has crossed 600 million at least. It hasn't been making much internationally, but it is still grossing, a decent amount of money domestically. But like I said before, it just keeps on grossing less and less, obviously, as the run continues. So it did cross 600 million, though, from what I heard. Release the Snyder Cut says they really made 12 forgettable movies to try and make everyone forget about Zack Snyder's DC run. And all it does is reinforce that Zack Snyder was the guy to handle DC. That's all they keep on doing. Validating. They say, well, Superman's easy to do. Any director can do it. Nope. Any director cannot do Superman. We've had 10 directors try to direct Superman over the years and in film. And of those 10 directors, only 2 have been successful in bringing Superman profitably to the screen, and only 2 really epitomize what Superman is and could be. So it is what it is. And it's going to stay that way, because I knew James Gunn is the last person you want to have do Superman. And this proves it. Flix Control confirms Superman is doing very poorly worldwide on digital release, mirroring the reception of the film. And Superman is at position number 8 in the worldwide charts right now. Okay. Let me see what this. This is Free Palestine in the morning. They said, I know I don't have Free Palestine in my title, but I covered Free Palestine. In the morning, they said they had brought medical aid boxes to the hospital, even though the doctor said we had received nothing. In the clip that they published on the grounds that it was evidence that the presence of weapons in the hospital, there was the same type of boxes that they brought in on the grounds that they claim was medical aid. Don't leave before you enter. So they literally, basically, they planted weapons in the hospital. That's how sick these people are, mentally sick. And that's why I'm not supporting Gal Gadot in nothing. We made all this stuff flop until she stands up to her government, stands up to the people who are doing these atrocities, stands up to the IDF and calls out their shit. And she can't do it disingenuously. We're not going to buy that. She has to do it from her heart. She has to build up a conscience. And all that victimhood, fuck that. I'm going to just do 2 more of these. Scott Ritter says, but still, not as bad as blowing up a pipeline to deny Europe cheap Russian gas, then turning around and selling Europe U.S. gas at significant markups. Talk about opportunistic garbage. Hypocrisy personified. He's talking in response to this guy. The Treasury Secretary saying, before the war in Ukraine, less than 1% of India's oil came from Russia. Now it's 42%. The system is allowing India to profiteer by buying cheap Russian oil, reselling it, and pocketing $16 billion in excess profits. This opportunistic arbitrage is unacceptable. What's unacceptable about that? You're buying the stuff and you're reselling it at a profit. Nothing's wrong with that. You know what's wrong? When you blew up the pipeline and you forced Europe to buy your oil, that's wrong. Because first of all, you did something evil. You blew up a pipeline you're not supposed to blow up. right? You sabotaged Russia to try to control it. Oh my God. This is what Gal Gadot supports. So a guy started fighting this guy, and the guy stabs him. He beats him. He beats him with a sharpened end weapon, and kills the guy. So the guy's dead. This is in the West Bank. And then the soldier comes to defend those people who attacked them. So the aggressors who attacked and killed the guy, they get away, and the soldiers protecting the people who attacked them. Tell me that's not crazy shit. And Gal Gadot is supporting that? Fuck you, Gal Gadot. Fuck you. Disgusting. Casey Michael Mann era says, yes, Superman Legacy flopped. It made less than Batman during COVID, less than Man of Steel 12 years ago, less than Justice League, and didn't recoup its budget marketing. That doesn't mean you can't be a fan of it. It just means you can't muck more successful movies. Correct. All right, man. I'm going to call it a quits right here because the Batman warehouse scene is the best Batman fight scene we've ever seen. So I'm going to leave it right there. I'm going to catch you guys later. I am Christ. I am disciple. I know I cursed and sweared in this thing, and I'm sorry about that. But other than that, I just wanted to say to you guys, I wish you a very prosperous and good day. Obviously, Restore the Snyderverse is going nowhere until it's fulfilled. As well as we're going to continue to ask for Constantine film. We're always going to continue to ask for the Schumacher cut to be revealed and finished. And you're going to find fans demanding a lot more things because we live in an age of social media where the studio should be dialoguing with fans, but they're not doing that. And James Gunn, he's a waste of fucking time as far as I'm concerned. So I'll say what I had to say. That's my piece on it. I hope you guys have a good day. I got to get out of here. I got to go and do a whole bunch of stuff. So I'll see you guys later. Peace.